Welcome to part 2 of my seed starting video talking about which seeds I'm really excited to grow this year. I'm growing the most amount of plants that I've ever grown from seed. I'm hoping to save a little bit of money by not having to buy $300 plus in transplants. I'd rather spend $2, $3, $4 on a seed packet, which has potentially up to 20, 30 transplants. Was that 10 cents a transplant? Then $3 each. I'm first going to talk about my tomatoes because they're my favorite thing to grow. A lot of new tomatoes this year, as well as some of my old favorites. I'm going to start off with the tomatoes from Baker Creek, the heirlooms. First, this came as a free seed. I was very surprised. Thorberg's terracotta. It was delicious. It had a nice smoky kind of saltiness, umami, and the color was amazing. It was kind of this brown orange with like green spots. It was great. Next, Cherokee purple. I've been growing black crim for 3 years now, and it is delicious, but the plant always dies mid-July. I want to try something similar. Hopefully that will give me that same great tomato size and flavor. Like a lot of the purple tomatoes, the black crim was kind of smoky, complex. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that'll be better suited for my garden. Next, I'm growing orange peach tomato. This variety struck me because it has a peach fuzz on it, like the word peach, and it's supposed to be very sweet. Orange tomatoes that I've grown tend to be very sweet. I've never grown a green tomato before. I've grown green zebra, but that's more of a yellow. That is a green tomato, but it has kind of green stripes. This is green. This says it's very productive, it's sweet, and it's juicy. I would have thought that a green tomato would kind of be tart, so I'm excited to taste these. I'm excited to see if I time the ripeness correctly, because that doesn't look like a ripe tomato, so that'll be interesting. Next, Black Beauty. This came as another free seed packet back in November, so I'm excited to grow these simply because they look very cool. And yeah, I don't know how it's gonna taste, but it looks kind of neat. A cherry tomato Bumblebee mix. I couldn't decide on purple Bumblebee, pink Bumblebee, or the other one. I believe it's yellow. So why not get a mix and see which one I end up with. This is what they look like. The next cherry tomato I'm growing is Barry's Crazy Cherry Tomato. I've heard a lot of good things about these. It looks super productive, and I've heard that it's very sweet. Kind of has this funny looking beak at the end. Next, I'm gonna grow Amish paste tomatoes. These are great for sauce and canning and preserving. Very meaty, not very juicy or seedy. So, and they're very flavorful. I have grown San Marzano tomatoes for probably 4 years now. They're just never productive. They always have blossom end rot issues, so hoping these will be an alternative. I'm not gonna even try for San Marzano this year. Another free pack from Baker Creek. This is Spoon Tomato. I'm only gonna do one plant because I see this being terribly annoying to harvest all these little pea-sized tomato plants, and I don't want 9,000 tomato volunteers popping up later in the season or next year. But it looks cool, and I've heard that these have a great tomato flavor. And yes, I am growing hybrid tomatoes. Not the end of the world, it's just a cross. These happen to be my favorite, Sungold. I paid a ridiculous amount for this seed packet, and I would do it all again. 100 seeds. I was not able to find any last year. I found a transplant in mid-June, and they were slower than the rest of my tomatoes, but they still, by around mid-September, they just started cranking. So I'm hoping to get these in early and see what they really can do. Like I did the previous year, it was just loaded with fruit. Those are my favorite cherry tomatoes, along with black cherry and super sweet 100. I don't know where the seed packet disappeared to, but I'm also growing Juliet hybrids. Juliet is my cousin's name, so we always grew them. They're incredibly disease resistant. They are incredibly productive. They're kind of in between a grape and a plum-sized paste tomato, but they're great for fresh eating as well. And they're very disease resistant, so I'm probably gonna end up using these as a rootstock for when I graft tomatoes, or when I kind of take the elements, the positive elements of one plant, the rootstock, and fuse it, I don't know if that's the best word, fuse it with the positive flavor elements of another not so productive, not so disease resistant tomato, such as one of my heirlooms, maybe the black creme. It's probably going to be an epic failure because I've never tried it before, but there's a first for everything. Another first, growing a dwarf tomato. This is lemon ice. It says it's sweet tart, and the name lemon ice just sold me because I love lemon ice. It's one of my favorite things about the summer. I don't know if you consider this more tomato or tomatillo. It's a ground cherry. It's kind of in between, I guess. Related to tomatoes, they grow in a similar way and they fall to the ground when they're ready. They're supposed to have a very sweet tart flavor. Heard people call them kind of like pineapple-y. There's another group of people who say with that sweet flavor, there's an overwhelming umami-ness that's kind of off-putting. I also have my favorite hybrid from last year, Celebrity. Just super productive. These really came in two waves. I think they're more semi-determinate than determinate. This claims it's determinate, but it kept cranking all season long. The plant was loaded November. The hybrid, big pink, and I have another hybrid somewhere in here. Chef's Choice Pink. So they're kind of similar. Probably gonna only do one and save the other one for next year. But I just wanted something a little bit more reliable in case I have a bad tomato year. Next I have my peppers. These are Sugar Rush peach peppers. They're supposed to be very sweet with a nice punch of heat. And I'm excited to make some hot sauce. I fermented my own habaneros this past year, and I'm still eating that hot sauce every day. It's amazing. Little hot. Too hot for the rest of my family, but I like the heat. Another pepper I'm gonna put in that hot sauce, ahi mango. I just bought these because I like mango and habanero together. Great on wings. The seed packet describes a mango sweetness with a nice searing heat. 25,000 Scoville units, like a hot serrano pepper, so not the hottest pepper on the planet, but it has some heat. Free seed packet from tomato growers. It's called the Super Kai or Key hot peppers. These are Thai chilies. I was looking for one, so tomato growers answered my prayers. Next I have Tam jalapeno. TAM stands for Texas A&M. And I expect if they are prolific in Texas, where it's oppressively hot and always humid and always raining, that they'll give me a good enough harvest in my relatively hot, very rainy northeast location. And these are supposed to be on the milder side, so I'll use them for my family because they're not as heat tolerant as I am. These are hotter. These are jalafuego. I've heard only good things about these. Another hybrid. Yes, I'm growing a lot of hybrids, but sometimes consistency and reliability are good. And I have a poblano pepper and a habanero pepper overwintering in my basement right now, so hopefully they come back to life. If you save peppers, they are perennials in parts of the world where it does not freeze, so you'll keep getting sooner and bigger harvests if the plant is older and healthy. Habanero, these are supposed to taste like the habanero but without the searing heat. Supposed to be intensely tropical sweetness. Yeah. Shishito peppers, great blistered. 1 out of every 10 is spicy, so excited to play that game. Very good with some lime, some salt. And I also have a few bell peppers in here. I'll find them. I think one is called Ace Hybrid. The other is called Gypsy Hybrid. I'm only doing hybrid bell peppers because bell peppers never work for me. Just takes too long to get going, and when they get going, disease or something gets to them. So I'd rather get like a banana pepper transplant or a Cucamelon transplant than waste my time with a bell pepper because they take too long. I'm only growing one tomatillo this year, and this is the first tomatillo I've ever grown. Queen of Malinalco. It's supposed to be an apple-like tomato-y flavor. It's supposed to be very sweet and tart for fresh eating and salsas. You need 2 plants for pollination, so I'm only gonna do 2 plants. First I have this Gouda winter squash. It's supposed to be a miniature Long Island cheese pumpkin. I have not had luck with pumpkins, so this is supposed to be smaller. Hoping that a smaller pumpkin means a little bit faster ripeness, because I always get problems with the squash vine borer and squash bugs, but being a Cucurbita moschata, no. That means they have thinner stems, basically less hospitable for the vine borers to bore through the stems. Granted, if that's their only option, they will do it. Chomboncino Rampicante from Baker Creek. I've only heard great things about this. It's great for people who struggle with the vine borer, and it's supposed to be a very mild zucchini-like squash, but it grows very big and it should be very productive. I see this growing all over. It's an old Italian variety. You could apparently keep growing it through the summer and harvest it as a winter squash. I don't know if I'm gonna do that, but I like that option. I'm only gonna grow 1 or 2 zucchini bushes this year because I just can't deal with the squash vine borer. And that should be enough for my family because they are typically very productive. We do have enough insect netting to house 2, maybe 3 zucchini bushes. I don't want to deal with the squash vine borer this year. I give up. Now for cucumbers, I'm trying a few different varieties. This is something I've never tried. Cucamelon or Mexican sour gherkins. They look like little cucumbers and melons, so the name is appropriate. They should have a nice crispness and sourness. So I'm excited to make maybe a relish or a fresh salad or maybe tzatziki with this. And the vines look nice, so I'm gonna put that on my overhead trellis that I'm gonna make with some welded wire this year. China Jade was not super productive, but it's delicious, so I'm gonna grow 1 or 2 plants. I bought this early fortune cucumber last year when all of my cucumbers were dying. I just wanted something to harvest late in the season, but they were not so early and it died. So this I've heard amazing things about. Silver Slicer, it's supposed to be kind of a pickling and slicing cucumber. It says slicer with a creamy white thin skin and long, straight, uniform 6 to 8 inch fruits. Juicy, sweet, and mild with a good crunch. Probably gonna grow the most cucumber plants of that one. It's supposed to be very disease resistant as well. Another free seed. I don't know much about this one. Probably just gonna do one. Have a great shelf life. Interesting. I'm debating on whether to even try planting a melon this year because it just never works. But this is the Golden Mini, aka another name that I'll write that's offensive. But I've heard good things about this one, so maybe. Next I have a few beans. First, these Calima or Calima beans. They're supposed to be productive. They're a bush habit. Mostly gonna do bush beans this year because I just don't have the space. You could just tuck these anywhere. And like peas, they will add nitrogen to the soil. So don't pull the plant out. Just cut off the bad parts and let the roots stay in because they will amend your soil. These look nice and thin and look like they would be great in a stir fry. Now I have some purple Cherokee, another bush bean. I would use these in like a salad, kind of the egg color, but they do turn green when they cook, so it is what it is. I'll still eat it. Last bean that I'm growing from seed is more of like an asparagus bean. It's a long bean Chinese noodle bean. It's supposed to be 18-inch pods, and these are really more for sauteing. Heard they have a different texture and kind of mouthfeel than your average bean. So I'm excited to see how these taste, and these will also go on the arch trellis. I also have violin squash because I play the violin, and it's supposed to be very sweet, and there were good reviews on Baker Creek, so see, it looks like a violin. I have a few seeds, probably about 3 or 4 seeds left of lime basil. It hasn't worked, but I really want to give it another go, so we'll see how that goes. In the previous video, I talked about how I'm growing nasturtium. That's another herb, nice and peppery. You could put it in pestos. You could use it as salad greens for a nice peppery kick and a little different flavor. It's a cool looking leaf. It kind of looks like a lily pad. I have a culinary herb collection from Eden Brothers. I'm currently growing parsley and cilantro inside here. I'm gonna try dark opal basil just because the color is cool. It's supposed to have a more mild flavor, so it would just be like a garnish thing, and maybe I'll let it go to flower to get in the pollinators. Finally, I'm gonna talk about the flowers that I plan to grow. In the past, I have not grown flowers. I've grown a few marigolds and that's been it. I really want to try to get better at growing flowers because they will bring in the pollinators and it'll just make everything look better, and why not? So first I'm growing some alyssum. Just gonna sprinkle this around as like a ground cover. Pollinators love this. They're supposed to have a great smell. Doesn't get so tall. But I gotta watch, with all these flowers, I gotta watch for self-seeding. I don't need a whole patch of alyssum. I just need a few in a confined area. So that's gonna be interesting trying to control. These caught my eye. These Queen Lime Orange Zinnias, these are very popular. I'm excited to grow zinnias because they're just beautiful and they're supposedly easy to grow. Oh, I forgot about eggplant. Chinese string eggplant. I had a terrible eggplant year last year. I grew only Ichiban eggplant. This is another Asian variety. I like the Asian varieties because they have more tender skin and less seeds. And they're just generally more palatable because there's nothing worse than just a spongy eggplant. So it's the way to go. I also have a dwarf variety. I don't know if it's a dwarf variety, but it's short. Another hybrid fairy tale, supposed to be kind of purple and white stripes. Nice for containers, so I'm gonna put that in a container somewhere. Next I have Borage. The pollinators are supposed to flock to this one. Nice blue flowers. They're edible, as are the leaves, but I read somewhere that it could cause stomach issues if consumed excessively. Not that I plan on doing that, but just something to note. I have a Dwarf Cosmo mix called Sulfur from Eden Brothers. Only gets 12 inches tall. That's the problem with a lot of these flowers. They kind of get very tall and gangly. So I was happy to find a more compact dwarf variety. And as far as I remember, the colors are nice too. Red, orange, and yellow. So these should attract pollinators as well. These I'm not gonna grow because I just read it grows 5 to 7 feet tall. First of all, I have no space for that. Second of all, it sells seeds like wildfire. I don't need a whole yard full of Mexican sunflowers. Supposedly the bees and everything love this, and the squirrels hate this, so I thought it was a good sunflower alternative, but just it seems like too much of a hassle, so I'll probably donate these somewhere. Next I have chocolate cherry sunflowers. These were free seed with the Black Beauty tomato. Excited to try a few of them out. I had a beautiful sunflower bloom last year in early September, but the squirrels found it beautiful too, and the whole sunflower head was chopped off. Gonna see if I could find some ways to control that issue, but I'd rather them eat a sunflower head than one of my tomatoes. One of the last flowers, this Zinnia, just looks really cool. Yeah, it just looks really cool. Yes, that's it. But I will be purchasing some transplants from a reputable nursery. Support small businesses. If you're awake, congratulations, thank you. You deserve a cookie. But yeah, subscribe if you enjoyed this somehow, and stay posted to see how I grow all these things, how I set up my grow lights. That'll be my next video. How I'm using cheaper shop lights instead of expensive grow lights that people often swear by. Do the same thing, they're lights. Why spend all that money if you don't have to, right? Thank you for watching, and have a great day, night, morning, whatever.